A very warm welcome to my community. I'm Sherwood McCaskey. As always, I'm pleased that you have joined us. Last week we concluded a three-part series with John Goddard. He spoke of Collis, Savannah and its neighbouring communities. There we recognized the many common threads that ran throughout Barbadian communities, the things that make us who we are and give us an identity. This week we have come to the parish of St. Michael, and here we have come upon a well-known Barbadian entertainer. In fact, this is a fine example of how a community has influenced and shaped the career path and vocation of one of its members. He will begin, of course, by sharing a little of the genealogy here, but he gives us, first of all, a sense of where his childhood days were spent.
I grew up in Brittons Hill, Seamen's village, Brittons Hill. I assume that the Seamen's village was, I am told, the home of quite a few seamen, actually, people who would have gone out, bringing the money and stuff. My family at the time would have been Sydney Willock. The name would be known with Percy Greene Band. Trude Willock, she was a caterer and she used to work at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. Both of them sang in the St. Amber's Choir. I did as well. I sang soprano till the voice cracked. Then I went in the tenor line. At the time I had an auntie, Aunt Gwen. She used to look after me with school and stuff because parents out working. So she was a seamstress, a very good one. And of course people from the neighborhood would be coming to get the dresses made, whether it's a wedding dress, a church dress, or whatever. Then I had another auntie, Eileen. I remember her passing when I was very young. And there was another one called Granny Moore. You know what, sometimes they don't even give you the history of these people. But the Willock name in itself is unique because you won't find Willock in Barbados, right? It's a very strange. If you see a Willock in the book, it's me or my brother or somebody like that. Willocks come out of, well, the original, the name is English, but it's going to Montserrat and Antigua. So all the Willocks in Montserrat will be my cousins. I haven't met many, but I did meet Rose Willock. She's at a radio station there in Montserrat. I have to get there. So that's where the name came from. I only discovered from going to school and thinking that nobody else had Willock. So where did this Willock come from? So it was a unique name, and I've seen it like people in England, right? And then Montserrat, Antigua, and I think a bit in Guyana as well. I remember living in an area with certain names. It was fairly close-knit. My parents, I can't say they really gave me a lot of the history of the place, but I discovered certain names and certain areas. So we were in Seaman's village here, and just up the road is Villa Road, and then you have Millyard Gap, and you have McLean's Gap, which is by St. Paul's Primary School. Archcott area. I never knew about the caves, and we discovered that in an unfortunate way. But I never used to go up in there anyhow. Now in Seaman's village, they had a little side road going. Actually there are two exits, one onto the main road and one onto the hill, which is Dalkeith Hill. And that main road, by the way, was two-way at the point in time. That little bony road was two-way, and I remember they used to have a Route 18 or 19 bus coming up Bishop Court Hill and making the right turn and going there and going right out to the end. So I used to get home fairly easily on one of those buses, but you're meeting the traffic coming the other way. I can't believe in these days now that was a two-way road. So that was one of the changes, that was one of the big changes made. And the buses stopped running. They didn't used to come through there anymore. I don't know if it's because it became one way or if it wasn't a viable route that you will have enough people to support the activity. It was a fairly close-knit community in that you had opposite us was the Rosses, and you go up and you have the Calendars, on the other side the Goodins, and next to me the Wilshire, and then an Indian man used to live next to me. And at the top of the gap was Smokey Burke and his mother and father. And one of the community aspects there was that my mother used to attend something called the Caribbean Women's League many years ago. I'm not even sure what kind of organization. It wasn't a lodge or anything. It was just a community group that they used to meet often, and that's probably how I knew Smokey. And now that I say Smokey, Brittons Hill was interesting. Now I look back at it in relation to musicians and performers. Smokey Burke was there. Next to him was David Weatherhead that went to school with me. He plays the clarinet and stuff. We were in the school orchestra together. And if you go over to McLean's Gap, you have Booney the palm man. Yeah? And then, of course, I came into the fray a little later on in my own capacity. We also had in the area, I remember, where the Paragon Tennis Club now is, used to be a marl hole. A marl hole, nothing in it but marl. So Easter time, we would go down in the marl hole and up the kite by running up the hill, and you pull in. It used to up fairly because you're coming from low to high, so it will get the wind fairly easy. They had a lime kiln somewhere on the side there, on the top of the hill. There was a police station as well, where the post office now is. We had a police station there, right in the, just on the crest of the hill. Not that it would interfere with the kite flying. At that time, the church we would go to is Dalkeith Methodist Church. And I remember the days of, for the 5 days before the harvest, you got these lines to memorize. H is for our harvest. We do it every year. We have to give God blessings, and we must learn to share, or something like that. And you got your sign, and you can't make any mistakes, That reminds me of some other people in Scott's Gap. No, Scott's Gap had Miss Graham. Ruth Graham was the superintendent of the Sunday school at Dalkeith, but she was also the principal of Carrington Village Primary School, where I attended because they wanted to make sure that the eyes were always on me. So she, via my Aunt Gwen, she's gone. So she used to look, very strict lady, She had a thick strap. And if you're in class and you can't tell where she's looking, right? Because she'd be looking down with the glasses, right? And she would just throw the strap. She was very accurate. She would throw the strap at you, and I was frightened for Miss Graham. So I was frightened twice, at Sunday school and at school. And she and my aunt, they were tight. Just opposite her was a lady called Sheila Allen. Her husband had a shop right there at the corner of Mission Gap, and used to get a little, snacks and drinks and stuff in there. And I think she used to play the organ at the church. So you see, everybody involved, yeah? And of course, the Tuk Band used to come down in the area, festive occasions, Christmas, Easter, bank holidays, and I would enjoy that music to the extent that I said to myself, I have to learn to do this. And having played the recorder at school, Harrison College, it was fairly easy to transfer the technique of the recorder onto the penny whistle. So I taught myself the penny whistle and the kettle drum and the bass drum. Well, of course, there were fellas in the area, Potato Mouth, you will remember that name, as the top kettle player. So I used to admire the action. You know, I say, see me, I gotta do this. I have to learn to do this. So that part is history, because I have Tuk Band. I have taught children in school to do Tuk. When the Tuk Band was first involved, people used to sing. If you check some of the history of the plantation, used to have people singing, maybe the beginning of folk music and calypso, singing about what went on during the week and who do this to who and blah, blah. And then the Irish influence came in. You had the fiddle. Because the actual penny whistle started in China and went around. Ireland, England, Scotland, those penny whistles. Only last night I met a lady at a hotel where I was playing, and she stopped me and asked me about this penny whistle and so on. She said, I know this instrument, I am from Ireland. And I told her, well, a Celtic group came here a few years ago, and we were asked to integrate with them, and it was no problem. What we were playing is exactly what they would normally play, and they used the fiddle. But then the fiddle went out and we had the penny whistle. So the penny whistle has been in now for the longest period. I'm actually teaching some penny whistle now with some youngsters in the Pine. And I always like the opportunity to share the knowledge and the information. Which the older guys will come in the community, but they're not interested in sharing the information. I like to share the information. We had the checks program running years ago. We were teaching Tuk Band, Landship, and still walking. And there was an element connected to the same Landship with the Friendly Society, cooperative movement type of thing, to encourage the youngsters into thinking about saving and not just splurging, right? Because there's always a rainy day. That type of thought process, you know. I remember my mother sending me almost every weekend with a little blue card. It was like a friendly society, and I do believe that that sort of activity was the beginning of the credit union movement, where you have savings and so on. So I would go up in the mill yard somewhere, up in there, you know, and I would knock on a paling, and you go in, and you pay up your money, and they write up the card, and you carry back the card home to show that you handed the money. I think I read somewhere of, not an actual Landship dock, but you know, they had different bands and so on, and I think there was one in my area. With the Tuk Band though, unfortunately, when I went to interview the guys, they never used to give you any information. I had a little tape record, I asked Potato Mouth, so tell me something about the Tuk Band, man, how it started and thing and la la. Man moved off from in front of me here. I ain't telling you nothing. In the community, even when I went and talked to the guy, you learn the hard way, these guys ain't giving you no information on the history or the Tuk. Some of them may not have even known the history. You come along doing something, you fall into line, and you never check where this thing come from. But I did my research, I worked it out. Because remember, we had a band in Barbados many years ago. You couldn't play African music, djembes and stuff. It was a death penalty. So the slaves had to find a way to approximate the use of their own rhythms. So you take the marching band and you add in your African stuff, you come up with Tuk music. That's how it came about. So then they could celebrate using Africa mixing with, that's why they still use the military looking drum, the kettle and the bass, but make it from indigenous materials with the tamarind rod and the goat skin and the sheep skin and them things. And you know, it's triangle is easy. It just bend the metal, or you use a cowbell or something, and festivity, and you're singing and thing, birthdays and whatnot. So that's how the Tuk Band really got into the fray. And that became then the engine of the Landship. After that, you know, you come out of slavery and you start becoming more Barbadianized, because that unit, which is a Tuk Band, is really throughout the Caribbean, but nobody plays what the other one is playing. And it amazed me that the older folks did not want to share that sort of information, but I persevered, moving around, studying and so on, and I got my information, and I got to learn to play. And even now, I have been able to produce a DVD of how to play Tuk Band music of Barbados 101. And parts of it on YouTube. So we talking about Smokey. Smokey was a drummer in a band before he was the big singer, but I think he used to drum and sing. Pleasure Seekers in Ballroom. The ballroom that could break your back. It must be noted that Ballroom was not my song, the Ballroom was Gabby's song. He helped me to get a second song when I did Tuk Band Rhythm, and of course you would know that Tuk Band Rhythm would have come from the same influence of the guys coming into my gap, Brittons Hill, Seamen Village, and playing Tuk Band. You get them a shot of rum, or $1, or in them days $1 was fairly cool. Nowadays $1 ain't really cutting it the same way. So one of the things that was exciting for me, my parents, in particular my mother, used to hold a dance right there in the front house. You know, you used to call it the front house. And it wasn't a living room then, it was the front house. And my father used to play the big mother fiddle with the Percy Greene Band. Now that Percy Greene Band was a well-known band. He used to play all over Barbados, right? And he used to be the thing. When Percy Greene died, he took over the band for a period of time. And then there was this guy called Trini, plays guitar. So my memory of those dances, of course, drinks and food, and the band would play live. People dancing and having a good time. And the exciting part is that at the end of the dance, my father had to carry home some people. So you know, he would jump in the back just to get the driving thing, get the experience. I had some interesting times with him because not only did he play with Percy Greene, but he used to play with other guys like Eric Fingers and Tittles, the drummer, some other names, Aberdeen Griffith, I think Aberdeen, yeah, he's a sax player. And I used to go with them and watch and listen. So then I got interested in the trap set as well. So of course I couldn't go, so when he bring in the instruments and they're gone, I would try and set up the drum set and play. Well, nobody didn't complain about noise, so that was not a problem. That Paragon Tennis Club that's there now, after they changed out the Marl Hall and they had this tennis club, they formed a band. Alan, I think it's Alan Ishmael is his name. You will hear him ping-ponging on the piano, trying to learn the piano all on by himself. In the evening, in the night, Mr. Ishmael over there when they refurbished. And then they had the Paragon Dance Orchestra put together some of the same names, the older guys that I mentioned just now, along with my dad. And they would go and play out, places, Yacht Club and different places. And I was privileged to play the drums with them for a period of time. And that was exciting because I was the youngster. So when you do a little riff and you hit everybody looking back, like feeling that you would go off or something. But it was just the spice, right? I don't know if they weren't accustomed to that sort of spice, but that part was good. So I remember the dances and so on, and all the people from the area would come to patronize, and that part was good. Now they had some names. People, you have the shop, well, let me tell you something, right? Brittons Hill got real shops. And you know, they used to say next to every church was a shop. But they didn't need a church, they had shops. Already have Miss Grant's shop over there, and then you had Howard's shop up on the other side. And you pass the section where Carmita Fraser food comes first. Used to live. You go up, you get Pleasure Seekers, where you had the ballroom dancing and thing. And you go across and you had Howard's shop, and Miss Grant's shop, Fall Workman shop. He used to be selling chicken and so on. They had an old fella with a shop, not drinks no, but Solly. A fella named Solly, he used to be selling biscuits and flour and stuff like that. That all out there, not where now, I can't remember what it used to look like. Solly. Then I have Frank Harewood shop, he's still there. Miss Grant's shop still there. Howard's shop is now another name. And well, those are the ones I would sort of move around with. Chelsea Road, you got Taffy down there in the corner, and they have some other little speakeasies right up in the S's by my friend Ken, he just passed, but in that area. Oh, of course, I had a little hot car too, so I used to, we would call terrorize the place a little bit in noise, and not like nowadays, right? It was decent, right? It had a little racing car and thing. And my mother didn't like me doing racing or riding bike or anything like that. But when I moved out to do my own thing, she told me, well, you can't carry all the trophies. You gotta leave some of them trophies here. I said, but you didn't want me to race? So what you want me to leave trophies? See, but you gotta leave at least 2 here so I could see them. One of the things the family would do, and not just our family, but other families in the area, we come right down here by Pebbles, come to the beach, 6 o'clock in the morning, certain days of the week, you have to get up, come, get up, we going to the sea. So the whole family had to come down here, and I shivering sore, and the water cold, but you gotta go in. Fortunately, after a few minutes, the body would acclimatize and thing, right? And swim out a little bit and thing. Now my father was a good swimmer. He would go all out by the boats. But you see me? Not me. I can stay where I could stand up, and I would come by the pot. Now the pot that is currently in Black Rock used to be here by Pebbles. And a lot of people from that community, and in fact, different parts of the island would come and actually be around that pot for like half an hour, 45 minutes. Some would actually venture inside the pot, which is the hottest part. And there are stories of people regaining the strength from stroke, arthritis, and different things from this hot seawater. So the Pebbles pot was very popular, and we were part of that because we used to come down and get a part of that. Light and Power was from here. Light and Power would have been somewhere in this area here, somewhere in this compound, like behind this wall. Light and Power would have been there. So the pipes were run out underground, and there were some pipes running from those engines right into the sea, where they were pulling water to cool the engines, and the pot was the exit point. So having passed through the engines, the water would then come out at this point, and they put like a metal grill around it. It wasn't, I don't think it was complete, because people used to be able to slide in between the rails and stand up inside the pot. And so the water was quite hot, and as you went further away from the pot, it would get a little cooler. But people used to be right around the pot. I mean, like from 5 o'clock in the morning, this pot used to be kicking, and people would come from St. Lucie, anywhere, to get a piece of this pot. And there are enough stories of people recovering from different things and feeling much better and stuff like that. So that pot was, and my father used to work at Light and Power too, so he knew about that fairly early. So he would the body just say, well, we're going down by the pot this morning. So you didn't have to worry about the cold water when you get close to the pot. It was very soothing. He used to work with the meters, and he would go out on there and he would suss out where you need transformers and meters and so on. Then he will have to gauge the distance between the pole and the point where the house is. So when he go up, he could write up so the linesman would know how much there. So we had some fun. Like when I was on vacation, I would go with him and I would be guessing the distances with him. We see who right and who wrong. You know what I mean? And that was interesting because, you know, we had a fairly good thing. Don't mind if you do some of this, he can put real licks here, which I didn't mind, but he used to beat too much, right? When I said too much, when he start, he don't want to stop. So the key was, don't let him start. So you try to be, you know? But in the same way, he would put licks here where you get older and you go out with him and he playing music and thing, he would make sure you have a drink. He ain't gonna hide that part. So what you have, I think in those days it was risky for me. So when he thing and there on a break and thing, he would make sure I have a drink. And then when we finish and he tired, I would drive home in the car. I mean, I didn't have a license then, but I was looking like if I was playing the part. I was a little biggish, and so You know, it got some good stories happening there. So I enjoyed that part as well. Now, they were both in the Barbados Festival Choir, which led into Bimshire. There was a dramatic presentation, but it had a lot of comedy in it, called Bimshire. And that Bimshire, the first episode, I think, was 1966 for independence. And it continued every year for quite a period of time. So both my parents were involved in that, so I got to do some acting very early, right? So you leave home with them and you go and do some acting, or you go to a Radio Fusion children's party with Joe Tudor, do a little recitation or a poem or something. That was interesting.
Well, this week's presentation of the series has been a fine example of how the activities of a community have influenced and shaped the career path and vocation of one of its members. Thank you very much, Poonka. I'm Sherwood McCaskey. Take good care of yourselves and look out for the interests of your neighbors.